Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles now, so many great storylines for this football team going into preseason game number 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. So we're going to open up the floor here, do a mailbag, and take your questions about some training camp storylines, preseason questions, all the pressing matters for the Philadelphia Eagles. You get to ask me. I come up with the answers. That's what's coming up on the docket. What's also coming up, the return of our watch parties. Go Birds! Watch parties returning with preseason game number 1 as the Eagles travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Our coverage starts on Saturday, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Make sure you subscribe. Most importantly, though, when you do hit that sub button, or even for those of you who are subscribed, hit that bell icon, turn on those notifications. Therefore, when we do go live, you'll get that push notification on your phone, and you can hop on board and join us. Nick Stone with question number 1. Do you think that Derek Barnett will be on the roster week 1? I've talked about Derek Barnett getting cut throughout this offseason. I will say I discussed that matter prior to the Eagles restructuring his contract to take his cap hit down, but to allow him to maybe make some more money in guaranteed cash. So that kind of told me that he's going to be on this team, but at a lower price tag with more guaranteed money. But Derek Barnett, in classic Derek Barnett fashion, got into a fight with Landon Dickerson during Wednesday's practice, and the official threw a flag. And Derek Barnett, as many of us know, always seems to get flagged for a late hit, a dirty play, something out of the box that cost this team. And while I think that he has ability and he's been somewhat underrated because sometimes it's not all about quarterback sacks, it's about quarterback hits and hurries, and he's able to tally those. His career has gotten off to a very similar start to Brandon Graham, first-round picks, busts. BG ended up being a legend. Derek Barnett's not going to be that, but can he be a similar player? I think so. Similar athletes as well. I don't think that his roster standing is guaranteed this upcoming season. Good question to start us off. VRM. I can't wait to see Jalen Hurts take that leap this year. That's our QB1. Look, he took a massive leap last year, did Jalen Hurts, and the fact that he's gone from 52% completion percentage in year 1 to almost 77% or 67%, in year 3 just goes to show you the improvements that he's made. And I don't think a lot of people realize and appreciate how good Hurts was last year. The accuracy was unbelievable. And the fact that he had under 10 combined turnovers with how much he threw it and how much he ran it, he was very accurate with the football, but a very smart decision maker, and he kept the ball out of harm's way. That's what elite quarterbacks do. That's what's partially made Aaron Rodgers so lethal throughout his career, because his touchdown to interception ratio has been greatly skewed to him throwing a bunch of touchdowns. And Hurts is that type of player who's never satisfied. He doesn't just want to be good. He wants to be great, and he wants to tack onto that greatness, and he wants to continue to improve on all his flaws. And him as a leader, how he carries himself, cool, calm, and collected, it's very contagious with that silent swagger, face of the franchise. And with him being voted number 3 by his peers in the NFL Top 100, that's pretty telling to me with how widely respected he is across the NFL. Byron Nails, $20 super chat. I have to do 60 push-ups, Chip. What do you think Hurts' stats will be this season? And do you think we will exceed our sack total from last year? So with Jalen Hurts a year ago, let me just take a moment to look at his stats because I want to compare the two. Jalen Hurts last year, throwing it and running it, was absolutely elite. And what people don't realize, the guy wins games, especially over his last 20-plus starts. So last year, he completed almost 67% of his passes, 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Running the football, he added 13 touchdowns. So he was able last year to combine for 35 touchdowns and 8 total turnovers. So let's say that he throws for 30 touchdowns this year, goes up by 8 from 22 to 30. And that connection with A.J. Brown has been unstoppable in training camp. Another year with him, another year with DeVonta Smith. Let's talk about Dallas Goedert's role increasing a little bit. Let's up the yards to 4,000, and then he adds 10 rushing touchdowns. So that's what I think he's able to do. And if he runs the football just a little bit less, I think that that's advantageous for Philadelphia to keep him injured. And then do you think we exceed our sack total from last year? 70 sacks last year for Philadelphia, 15 more than any team in the NFL. That was the most in the NFL since the mid-1980s when the Chicago Bears were a tremendous defense. Monsters of the Midway. So I don't think they're going to beat that number of 70 from last year. Let's say 69. Very nice. How many games will the Eagles win in 2023? Get those record predictions down below in the comment section. And if you want to bet on this preseason opener against the Baltimore Ravens, there's no better sportsbook to do it than with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. And they are offering a fantastic deal that you can't miss. 125% deposit bonus if you head to chatsports.com/EaglesBet, promo code Eagles125. You put in $100, you get $125 back. That's $225 to game with. VRM with another one here. Do you think DeVonta Smith will stay with us his whole career? I talked about him last week, and I hope you all went back and watched that show because I looked at the trends of his career. I looked at how other wide receivers are paid. I compared him to other similar wide receivers and their respective trajectories in the NFL. And we looked ahead at the contract matter for Smitty. He's going into year 3. Because he was a first-round pick, next offseason, the Eagles will be able to exercise his 5th-year option if they please to do so. What that would mean is he gets 2 more years on that rookie deal, making him under team control through 2024 and 2025. So that would be, on top of this year, 3 more years of team control for DeVonta Smith. After that, though, if he continues on this ascent, he could be one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. Is Philadelphia going to be able to afford him? If he stays with this organization, I do think DeVonta Smith can break pretty much a lot of the records at that wide receiver position because he's already been so productive the first 2 years. Guy loves to get in the lab, great footwork, a little bit undersized, but if he can remain injury-free, we're looking at a legendary Eagle potentially. Ernesto Ojeda, we know that Hurts is the main starter. Do you see a battle for backup quarterback either in training camp or one of the upcoming Eagles preseason games? Because of the money being paid to Marcus Mariota, Mariota is going to be the backup. I do think that Tanner McKee could make the team and Ian Book gets cut because McKee's been getting more snaps as QB3. VRM with another one. He's a star of the show today. Do you think Sidney Brown is going to be the next legendary safety for Philadelphia? So with Illinois last year, hard hitter, played in the box, tackles for loss, interceptions, fumbles forced, fumbles recovered. He was always in the right place at the right time. He's a very instinctual player, and I love his fearlessness. All those traits, they go line for line with a guy like Brian Dawkins, Malcolm Jenkins, some of the great safeties in the history of this organization. I'm not going to say he's going to be the next legend, but I do like the player a lot, and I wanted the Eagles to take him. Cool Reigns, which undrafted free agent could make the team? Joseph Nagata, the wide receiver out of Clemson. I think that he really has a good chance of making this team. Mekhi Garner, Eli Ricks, 2 other players that you could look at as possibilities to crack the 53 as well. This practice squad's going to have a couple of really good names as well. Saturday watch party. Join us on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Our coverage begins with an hour pregame show. Yeah, because we're built different. And there's a lot to talk about in the lead up to this game. 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Make sure you hit that sub button. Maskilla. In my opinion, DeAndre Swift might be bad because he's injury prone. So there's a difference between being injury prone and banged up. Because Swift in his career has always played at least 13 games every year, and he's played a lot of football. He has been banged up to the point where he hasn't been a featured number 1 back. And I remember Deuce Staley was a little bit frustrated with Swift and his lack of toughness, not dealing with some of the nicks and knacks that come along the way of being a running back in this league. The talent is there. He's a really special player who's a better receiver than Miles Sanders and maybe a better runner than Miles Sanders. But you're right, to a certain degree, has to be able to prove that he can be durable in this league. SC Birds fan 803, odds that Howie makes another move at linebacker. I think the odds are pretty good. I've talked about this here on the show. What Howie Roseman wants to do right now, let's bring in, I think this is his thought process. We have a young player, Nakobe Dean, who might be a better game player than practice player. Again, instincts, feel. We have Christian Ellis, who's been making plays all throughout the offseason, but is a UDFA. Nicholas Morrow had more than 100 tackles last year, double-digit tackles for loss, but he struggled in coverage. They're all young players. So he brings in Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham as insurance. Dean had the ankle injury. They're also young and inexperienced. Cunningham and Jack have played a lot in this league, and they've played really well. Cunningham led the NFL in tackles in 2020, and Jack has been pretty well accomplished, although last year in coverage he was bad for Pittsburgh. But they're cheap options. So he wants to see if he can fill the gap with some cheap options and see if he can get by with being affordable. If they do need to make a big move and make a trade for a more expensive player, I think Howie will do that. You just got to give him a couple of weeks to examine and evaluate the roster. Calvin, Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter, who would you start? I would start Jordan Davis, but next year I think Fletcher Cox might be out. Could be his last year in Philly just because it's getting a little bit too expensive. And then you have two players on the rookie deals in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter playing at defensive tackle like they did at Georgia. Byron Nails. Smitty has over 2,000 yards receiving already. He can easily break some Eagles records. He broke the rookie record already. So he broke the rookie record already. He also broke the record for the most receptions in a single season last year with 96. Goes to show you, he is off to a great start. And I know that everybody is up in arms about the Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson pick. I am too. It kind of hurts me because Jefferson is special. He's a dog. But Howie Roseman made up for it by drafting DeVonta Smith and then trading for A.J. Brown. That wide receiver combo is one of the best in the NFL. Andrew Nathan, what's more likely? The Eagles keep 6 wide receivers or 6 cornerbacks? That's a good one. I'm going to go, man. Because if we include Britton Covey, he'll be wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 5. A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus, Shoo-ins. That's 4. Do you go, and let's say Britton Covey is the returner. That's 5 technically, even though he doesn't really play a lot of wide receiver. Joseph Nagata could be 6. He could be a practice squad guy. They do value cornerbacks a lot, and there's a logjam at that position where do you cut a Greedy Williams, a Mekhi Garner, and Eli Ricks? Josh Joby has been playing really well. They want him on this team. He's getting first-team reps at points, especially when James Bradbury was out, and he's the top backup outside cornerback. So I'm going to go more likely 6 cornerbacks. If you made it until the end of the show, you're a real one. Let's do a real one roll call down in the comments section. We appreciate you, as always, for supporting the show. So many content options out there. That's why we're so blessed and so grateful that you choose us.